are kicking off hour 2 here on a Wicked Wednesday edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco. We are patiently waiting to start my favorite part of the show, the Mix It Up segment, where we bring on a Democrat and Republican. We have thoughtful conversation. But John Burnett, who joins us regularly on Wednesday with my good friend David Eisenbach, is a little behind schedule. So I am going to reappoint you for today, David. David is a Columbia professor. He was a candidate in New York City for public advocate. And he's our very own presidential historian. So I want to get your take, before we mix it up, I want to get your take on the whole impeachment process has now brought us to a crazy place, if you ask me, and we've kind of agreed and disagreed on that. But now we have this Inspector General's report, and they cleverly framed this, if you ask me, to say the report was to look into political bias, right? And they found that there was no political bias. But the rest of the report seems quite damning, that our FBI, to the senior-most people, went to great lengths to spy on Americans with little to no evidence.
Well, this is the interesting question, that use of the word spy, right? And there's been a lot of dispute about that. The FBI, has, of course, refuses to acknowledge that they spy on anybody. They investigate, right? But now we have the Attorney General using the phrase spying.
Yep.
The fact of the matter is, since the days of J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI has been spying on Americans.
That's right.
And now we have a president calling out the FBI for doing just that.
And when the Patriot Act came around to fight off terrorism, the lefties, your folks, the left-wing part of the party, was like, oh, it's invasion of privacy and all this other stuff. So they came up with these FISA courts, right? That their own special court,
right,
that you have like this higher level, this higher standard of evidence. Because if you want to spy on an American, you got to really prove to the court why you're doing that, right? So if you lie to a regular court, you got a big problem on your hands, right? I mean, just generally, we take an oath, you perjure yourself, you're in trouble.
Right.
But when it's the investigators lying to the FISA court, when they use the word coup, to me, there's something to that, dude.
Well, this is where the discussion of the deep state really does come in.
Exactly.
And a credit to Trump. I mean, this is something that the left has been talking about for decades. That we do have these bureaucracies whose interests are preserving their own power at the expense of democracy.
Yeah, and I mean, when they asked the Inspector General, Lindsey Graham, who I thought could have went crazy, like, went nuts and waving his hands. He took a very deliberate approach. He seemed like a great prosecutor. I knew he was a former prosecutor, but he asked the Inspector General, hey, did they omit exculpatory evidence from these warrants? Yes, they omitted exculpatory evidence. Okay. Do they have a duty to give the court all the evidence? Yes. So they intentionally lied to the court to continue spying on Trump. How crazy is that?
Yeah, and the question is, will there be criminal repercussions for those responsible?
Well,
and my hunch is, seeing as every time when you have one of these scandals, knowing it's prosecuted, this will get swept under the rug again.
Okay, so I think your opponent has entered the building.
Oh, John Burnett's in the house.
John Burnett is in the house. He can see it and hear it, but I want to play this clip of Trump talking about the higher levels of the FBI, and then hopefully Johnny will be here by the time it's over. Let's take a look at SOT3.
People. They've destroyed the lives of people that were great people, that are still great people. Their lives have been destroyed by scum, okay, by scum. An FBI lawyer took an email, forged an email used as evidence, an act which is now the subject of a criminal referral.
All right. Well, we're working on the fly here. These things happen these things happen on live television, but that was Ms. Sarah Chester, our fantastic makeup artist, and You caught the wrong side of her, but she's wonderful. And she's working day and night and hard as ever for us. But Johnny, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
We were just checking in on, David and I were just talking about the Horowitz report and how damning some of this stuff was. And now that Trump has read it, you saw the clip, it's well known and admitted by all now that the senior most levels, McCabe, Comey, participated or looked the other way in a whole bunch of FISA warrants to spy on Americans where they omitted information, they omitted exculpatory evidence, they changed the forged documents. How scary is this?
Right. It's really scary, right? When you take what you just said, that sounds like people that are outside of law enforcement, right? Not inside of law enforcement. You wouldn't expect that. And now they're actually pundits on some other stations that I won't mention, right? Pushing the propaganda. This really is a black eye for not just the everyday law enforcement people that put their lives on the line and really, make great sacrifices. This is actually the top rank.
Right.
And we have to make that distinction,
When he's
which is
saying-
more troubling.
Right, when he's saying scum, and I think Trump has done a really good job, even in some of his craziest tweets, to say the men and women of the FBI, the rank and file,
Absolutely.
are great
Good people.
patriots and everything else. He's referring to the Strocks, the Pages, the Orrs, the
Right.
McCabes, the Comeys, who had this plan, and there are text messages of them saying, Plan B.
Right.
Viva la resistance.
Right,
And they're
before the
saying-
election.
I'm saying before the election. And these people stayed on well past the election to still try to find something. Dave, I know we try to find common ground in this.
Well, this is one place where we do have common ground. There is a deep state. There are these entrenched bureaucrats in the intelligence community who are working for their interest, and their interest is power. And they don't care about democracy, they don't care about the law, and they've been doing this for decades.
As crazy as Trump may be to some, right? Everyone, I think it's well documented that he's like a disruptor, right?
Right.
He had to
Absolutely.
beat 17 Republicans. He had to beat Hillary Clinton and the DNC and all the foreign money she can get her hands on. He beat everyone. Never ran for office. He came straight off the set of The Apprentice
Absolutely.
and won. So they were scared to heck with this guy.
I like the word that you used, disruptor, right? I actually look at Trump as sort of like disruptive technology,
Yeah.
right? Not well received once it comes into the marketplace,
No.
right? But over time, when they see the results, when they see the material changes that benefits everyone and improves people's lifestyles, right? And livelihood, guess what? Then they start embracing it. But those that are competitors, right? Those that are most threatened by technology, they push back. And they actually launch a campaign against that new up-and-coming person. So we see the same elements in business as we do in politics.
Let's take a look at some more Trump here because he's raging. Okay, SOT5. I want to hear what you guys think about this. This is.
I am inevitable.
On this solemn day, I recall that the first order of business for members of
That's great.
The beauty of the internet these days. Dave, somewhere in there, you're a presidential historian, you're an esteemed, academic at Columbia University. You told me many times, no one's ever been removed from office by this process. They know they're looking at a majority over in the Senate, so it's not going to happen. Shouldn't they be doing what Trump just did in that cartoon, just erasing this whole thing from the board?
Well, they can't just surrender. They've gone this far, and by the way, Nancy Pelosi was pushed into this process. But one thing I just want to get back to, Trump didn't just make up this challenge of the deep state. The American public were sick and tired of it. It was the deep state that got us into the Iraq war. It's the deep state that perpetuated this Afghan war, and it turns out they were lying to us every year after year. The American public is fed up, and the games that the FBI was playing involving Donald Trump, it was just symptomatic of a greater sickness.
Should somebody get locked up here, Johnny?
I agree.
Oh.
Right? We agree on this. When you go back
Thanks
to
for
the
reminding me. I
Iraq
ring the
war,
bell when we all agree. That doesn't happen all the time.
right, it was what the CIA, FBI, all these different organizations, right, within government that perpetuated a lie, right? And then Bush actually took action, got us into the Middle East, and they're still up to the same games, right? But President Trump is not someone that can be manipulated like previous leaders. And that's, to your point, that's what's different about Trump, and that's aggravating them to the highest levels, to the point where they're willing to undermine our own government. It's treasonous in many ways.
I want to ask you guys just your final thoughts. Should we keep digging into this Afghanistan thing? We're being told now that we've been getting lied to for about 20 years. Should we just pick up stakes and get out of there?
It's time to just declare victory and go home.
All right.
I think we need to. Government is not like business. They cannot focus on multiple things at the same time, right? So I think, to your point, I think we really need to make sure that we dig deeper into, this undermining of not only just President Trump, but the Oval Office and our democracy. And heads need to roll.
Heads need to roll.
Somebody's got to get locked up. If any of these people were Italians, there'd be a RICO case going on, and everybody
right?
and
keep in mind, right?
And Tacchini sweatsuits.
There are U.S. troops now in Afghanistan who were born after 9/11.
Right,
That's right.
Falsifying
They don't even know
documents.
And are we going to expect them to die over there for a war that they've been lied to, that we've been lied to
finding
about
out
for over
every
a
day
decade?
these days that our own government is lying to us about Afghanistan. Our own government agencies are lying to the courts about documents. It's getting scary.
It's the biggest
in
inside job.
this country. It's
Unbelievable.
It's an inside job. We're going to take a quick break. John Burnett finally got here, and David Eisenbach and Johnny are always here for us to mix it up. Thank you guys for joining us, and you guys are going to do a little after-show today. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to get you all that information on YouTube, Facebook, all those other places. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with super mom and super executive producer, actress Zen Sams right after this.